Good morning and afternoon. It's Wednesday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Welcome all. I'm Kane and I'm joined with David, also known as the Workday Sharing Guy. Also joining us today is Denise, the Sharing Show organizer. Welcome to the Sharing Show.
Kane, can you tell us a little bit more about Zoom?
Absolutely. So we're using Zoom today, and we want everyone to feel that they can interact with the guests on the show. So if there's any questions you have, feel free to hit the chat button, chat to anybody you like. Everyone else will see that message, and we want to keep it fun and interactive. So with that being said, I'm going to pass this over to Logan for something different this week.
So before we start this week's Survey Kahoot, let's get some background from David, the Workday Sharing Guy.
Okay, hi all sharing fans. This is David, the Workday Sharing Guy. I start the show with a disclaimer just so everybody knows I don't represent Workday. Well, myself, everybody, we're all Workday customers. We're all sharing. Nothing you hear today is representing Workday. I was at one point an active Workday employee. I was employee 149 is my employee number. I was hired in 2007. And I left Workday around 6 years ago. So I'm in Workday as a Workday employee. Of course, those of us who know Workday, I'm just not active. So share-a-thons and the sharing show, this is all knowledge sharing. This is not training. I do highly recommend the Workday training. So what I would like to do differently is prepare people for the first Kahoot by reviewing some reporting and calc field features and options. What I'm showing here in the bottom corner is a report that I've written on reports. And there's an option inside of reports, of course, to share reports. And you could share reports with all authorized users. You could also share reports with any particular users, one or more explicitly. You don't have to share a report with anybody, of course, but you could share with all authorized users, any particular user or groups of users. So these are all your different options of sharing reports. Now, what happens if you do specify all authorized users? I blew this one out here because there was over 1,000 authorized users on a particular report. So it could be a large number. So I wanted to point that out because this is going to come up here in a minute with a list of several different features on reports. There's separate features that you can mark a report to be temporary. And in this picture, you see the output of a report that I wrote on reports. You could write reports on reports, and you could list, of course, all these different sharing options. So you know with all your reports how many authorized users there are, who it's shared with, when it was created on. This one was created back in 2011, and whether or not it's temporary, which is either the word yes or blank in this case. So this is not a temporary report in that particular picture. Now, I was curious, the definition of temporary, it's not the same as Workday's definition, at least not in this case of a temporary report, because the definition is that it lasts for a limited time. It's not permanent. Well, it was interesting for me. There's actually a second definition that came up in my Google search, is that a person, of course, is known as a temporary, which is first time after 11 years of Workday that I realized you could write a report on employees, you could write a report on contractors, you could write a temporary report on temporaries. Okay, so those are some of the features about reports. I'm switching or adding a picture here now about calc field. So temporary reports is one feature. I'd like to know which of these are your least favorite. Using the all authorized users, is that a good thing? That's my question. I'm trying to find out. This is not one answer. It's a survey. So how about naming conventions for your calc fields? Is this a good idea? The training class, which I helped write, we always used CF. And now that I've been working with customers for over 6 years, I like to put a Z in the front. That way they alphabetically show at the end. I also like to put always 3 characters to abbreviate the function time. Then the final potential topic of what could be your least favorite, for those who are somewhat new to Workday, you could tie a calculated field to a report. So a report-specific calc field. Of course, if you make a copy of a report, and we've all done that at least once, if not twice, that report-specific calc field, that then gets copied, and you get you result several different calc fields with the same name, all tied to different reports, which is really the same original report that was copied many times, perhaps. Okay, so these are the 4 that will come up in this Kahoot.
Okay, so it's time for our Kahoot. So if you will open a browser and go to kahoot.it, you will be able to join us for our Kahoot. We just have 2 questions this morning. There's no right or wrong answer, just whatever best suits you. Your pin for this morning is 939499. There's Miss B.
And those who are new to the sharing show, you can open up on your smartphone. You don't have to register. You just open up Safari on an iPhone or Chrome on Android and just type in kahoot.it.
All right, let's get started. Which of these reported and calc field features is your least favorite?
A is temporary, B, blue is all authorized users, C is report-specific calc fields, D, green is ZCF or other. Okay, it's interesting. A lot of people don't like temporary reports, or all authorized users is the winner here for the least favorite.
Counting this one, how many airings of the sharing show have you attended? This is my first. I haven't missed any. I've missed only 1, or I've missed 2 or more. Looks like we have mostly people that have joined us before and have been here for at least 4 of our airings. That's awesome. Great, thanks for everybody for playing along.
Oh, wait a minute. We had 8 people say they haven't missed any, but last week I thought it was only 6. All right. So I don't think that's possible. All right. Well, here we go.
David, what is this week's challenge?
Okay. This week's challenge is an addition to past week's challenges. So often I hear this, and I mean often, like 3 different companies I worked with, someone says, I cannot get filtering to work for some reason. So the way that this is worded on community, your friend says that her report, the filtering is just not working. Instead of removing rows, there's a lot of blank columns. So what's the most likely cause of this issue? That's this week's challenge. And you'll see here that it's a node 85186. You can tell by the number, it goes back a while as challenge question number 3. Now, this is going to come up later. So what I ask is don't put an answer into the chat. We've had this happen before. It kind of messes up the final challenge of that challenge question.
All right, this week we have more than one ask. And we're going to start with our first special guest, Javed from Maryland.
Hi, my question is related to an integration that we're trying to build. We currently have a supplier registration portal that creates the supplier record through the Workday web service, submit supplier. And we're planning on adding some custom field, a custom object and a custom field, additional details on the supplier object. And I wanted to know how to update those custom fields through the integration. Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Now, in this case, this is one where we want people to go ahead and have an active discussion on the chat. So any input, please put into the chat.
And now we have another special guest, Alex from South Carolina.
North Carolina, actually,
North
but we're close.
Carolina.
So one of the things that we are looking at as a company is rolling out onboarding and improving the new hire experience, and that also comes with making the administrators' jobs a little bit easier. And we're looking at rolling out that no-show business process that Workday released last year. So we're trying to get some feedback from some other customers that have already utilized that no-show process to get a feel for how does it work for their company. Was it an easy rollout? How has it helped them, and what are some possible lessons learned? I know that I asked a whole lot of questions just now, but if anybody wants to reach out to me in the chat, I'd love to connect.
Okay, so let's continue that discussion in the chat. And Alex, we're still with you.
Yes, so one of the things that I wanted to share with everybody here today are some of the ways that we are leveraging just a handful of calculated fields to bring a lot of consistent benefit with various validations and condition rules that we leverage throughout our tenant. So we have built 3 different calculated fields that allow us to look at security groups so that we can see the security groups of who the worker or who the event is about, who is currently initiating a different business event, and then also who had initiated the event to follow any subsequent steps in a business process. And you can see some of the examples of different ways that we've leveraged those on some different condition rules on screen. So I just wanted to show briefly, it is, for us, we've used it for 3 different methods, and each of the 3 calculated fields is built off of this one calculated field where you are extracting the security groups on a Workday account, and you're pulling that up on a calc field to the worker business object. And then from there, you take that calculated field and you pull it up a second time onto either the event or the action event business process. So on screen, you've got 2 examples that we've got there of we're pulling the security groups for the about worker so that we can say, you know, look, is this business process for an HR person or is it for a non-HR person? And then looking at the second one here, initiator. If we can go back real quick, I also want to mention, you might see the verbiage that I have on that field name. That's a benefit for me as the report writer and the business process administrator. But it's also just a quick hint to anybody who is looking at this. Just a quick reminder, the initiator pulls no value if you are putting that on the initiation step of a business process, which is why we have a calc field that looks at initiator and also one that looks at current worker.
And it looks like you do not put a space after the CF. So you have a CFAE for CF action event and CFE for CF event. You put a Z in front and they'll show alphabetically at the end. But did I guess it right for CFAE and CFE?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So this next screen here just shows an example of one of our condition rules that was built off of those calculated fields in action. So if the initiator is not an HR administrator on this business process, then the compensation review will go to the HR business partner. This is an example of one of our allowance requests where the HR admins can just submit an allowance change and it goes straight to completion. Anybody who is not an HR admin, it has to follow all of those steps. The next one is showing another example where it's looking instead at who the event is about. So for some of our events, if an employee is terminated and the person is in human resources, then it's going to go to the HR director, where if it's not an HR employee, it goes to the standard HR business partner. Just for kicks, I looked, we have those 3 calculated fields that we built that we have leveraged against 16 rules. And I didn't realize we had it in this many places. We actually used those 16 rules in more than 120 different locations in our tenants. So I thought it might be helpful sharing, saying, look, it's actually pretty simple and they can be very, very handy.
And this brings us to our second share of the day with our special guest, Floyd from Tennessee.
Good morning. I thought I'd just quickly share a little, one of those things you stub your toes on as a report writer. I'm not certain that the current behavior is ideal, and I think Workday needs to fix it, but this is at least a workaround. So the situation here is if you go into a custom report and you build a report specific analytic indicator. So let's say, for example, that we want to look at this report and we want to add a report specific analytic indicator to the failed sign-on field to visually call out failed sign-on. And so for an example, we set up this specific analytic indicator here to show a green check mark if it's a successful sign-on or a red X if it's a failed sign-on. And then we save that analytic indicator and save the report. Now we come back to the report and we decide we don't want that analytic indicator anymore. When you look at the maintain calculated fields for report, next to analytic indicators, there's an edit button, but there is not a delete button. And so the question is, how do you actually delete that analytic indicator that you no longer need? Unfortunately, the only clean way that I've found to do that is to go in and edit the display option name to put some string in the front of it that you can search for. I usually use my initials in like DEL. Then you can run the task, delete analytic indicator, put that string in and find the one that you want to delete. Otherwise, it's very difficult to find. So it's a quick thing, but it's one that you can bang your head against if you don't have a way to work around that.
All right, so Floyd, you have us stubbing our toe and banging our head too, right?
Right. That catches both ends.
All right, and previously we were doing mouse gymnastics. So let's bring up your brainstorm. You ready to move on to this now, Floyd?
Yeah, this is not really related to the prior topic, the share before, but it is something I'm interested in. I see a lot of other Workday customers trying to work around. Workday provides a nice data source for trended workers, but there's a lot of other cases that you need to trend snapshot data at different points in time. And so this was a couple of different options. One would be to be able to actually create a composite report and actually, instead of having to hard code columns for different time periods, that you could actually define it so that it would start at a certain date and then increment by X number of days and then create a column until you reached a condition and kind of create trending data in a composite report. The other option, which I'm actually more in favor of, is a way to create custom trended data sources by customers so that you could essentially create trending snapshot data off of any business object in Workday and specifying like a start and end date and then an increment and then trend that. So be interested in thoughts of anybody else on ways to accomplish that.
Okay, so comments in the chat and then on that page on community as well, right, Floyd?
I prefer on the brainstorm idea itself, because then the Workday product managers can see the comments and it helps shape their thinking around it.
Okay, thank you, Floyd.
David, what's the update on some of our past brainstorms?
Okay, well, our very first airing of the sharing show, Floyd had this one of using a WID to help facilitate searching. You could see that one's bumped up over 10 votes. Then on the third week, Floyd shared this one, is maintain favorite related actions for to help with productivity. That one's bumped up more than 10 votes. And last week, I shared this one, is I would love it if customers could actually post videos on community. That one's been bumped up about 18. And now we have this one. So Floyd has just given us another fantastic brainstorm. And so he's done the first week, the third week, and the fifth week. Seems kind of odd to me, but we have several brainstorms now for everyone to vote for.
And that brings us to our fun photo of the week. So for our friendly feline fans, I was searching the web for ways to be more productive on Workday. And the first thing that Google came up with was, of course, the sharing show. And next was this pic of the cat asking, why isn't there a cat? Why isn't there a take your cat to work day? Because we all know that productivity levels may drop a little, but people would be much happier. And that reminds me of my favorite Workday Cloud Platform app. So if any of you would like to submit your favorite photo to be considered for Fun Photo of the Week, just send it over via our LinkedIn group and we will get in touch with you and you'll be on our show.
Okay, now it's time for our Kahoot quiz. So the quiz will have a right answer. So one of the 4 answers will be correct. So if you'll log or go back to your smartphone, we will go to kahoot.it again. We'll get a PIN number. Your PIN number for the quiz is 635400. On your smart device, just put that PIN in and then it'll ask you for a name.
Now, while people are joining, I'm trying to watch the chat. It's hard while I'm also presenting, but there was a question that came up about the LinkedIn group. So you would need to find links to it through my LinkedIn page or Denise's LinkedIn page or on Kane's page. Somewhere, you know, search for the sharing show. And there's the sharing show as a group is what you're looking for. You would have to click to ask permission. You could look back at previous airings of the sharing show on a YouTube channel, and then that would show you exactly where you would need to click. So thank you for asking that question. Okay, we've got 4 questions here. Most likely, the attempt to filter resulted in many blank columns because red, workers are missing data. Blue, too many RBOs were used in the report. Yellow, need to add an is not empty on the BO in the filter. Green, avoid using subfilters. So most people got that right. You need to say is not empty on the business object in the filter, and you have to use a subfilter. Let's see who's in the lead. Samantha is closely ahead of Chris M. A temporary report. Red disappears after week. Blue disappears after a time that you specify. Yellow only disappears if it is not used. Green only disappears if you take some action. It is temporary, of course. And I'm not talking about the person who worked as a temporary. The right answer was green. It only disappears if you take some action. Okay, you do specify a time, but it doesn't actually disappear. It's not completely temporary in that definition of it. Let's see who's ahead. Chris M still ahead. Actually, Miss B has come close, as well as Joe coming up close. All right, let's see what we got here. ZCF is a good naming convention because all your calculated fields will alphabetically appear last. Blue, it looks cool. Yellow, the letter Z is reserved for calc fields. Or green, it's David's best idea ever. Okay, everyone got that. I voted for it's David's best idea ever, but I guess my phone didn't register. Okay, Chris M's in the lead, Joe and Miss B close behind. Okay, the final question. Workdog is red, a popular misspelling of the word workday. Blue, a popular WCP app. Yellow, the name of Logan's dog. Green, a 4-legged superhero. And Locke got that right. It's a popular Workday Cloud Platform app. Let's see who the final winner is, and then I'm going to need to come back and redo some of this. So Chris M., you stayed in the lead. Joe, you got close, and then Miss B, you're here in the final three. Turns out that there could be a mistake there on the temporary report, and that it actually will automatically disappear. I'm going to follow up, and we will bring that up on the next airing of the Sharing Show. By the way, I'm admitting that after 11 years of Workday, I still do make mistakes sometimes.
Okay, once again, a great show, everyone. A great end to the show as well, that quiz there. So we will be pushing this episode out to YouTube as soon as we can. So you can always catch up and you can see the past episodes there as well. Please subscribe and set the notifications on so you get the notification when the episode is up and live. Once again, thanks everybody for joining. Really appreciate everybody taking part, and thank you to our special guests. We look forward to seeing you next week. So today, everyone have a great work day.